We saw you guys play a little bit of zone and some full court press the other night against Nebraska. I just wondered how you felt that maybe impacted the game and how effective some of that was to be able to switch some things up defensively.
I felt like it was one of the turning points for us in that game. You know, when we made them run some clock with the press. So, you know, by the time they get down, you know, the clock down a little bit more. And then I think our zone, you know, we ain't really showed zone a lot this year. We showed it a few times, a few games, but not as much. And I think the zone really, you know, stopped their momentum a little bit. And, you know, we knew where the shooters was at. We was all on the string in the zone. And we also, and the good thing about it, we got rebounds out of the zone too. So,
how hard is that to throw something like that, like mid-season? I know Coach Holtmann has talked about how he would prefer to be a man-to-man team, but how hard is it to make that sort of switch a little bit mid-season, and how much does that maybe give another team something more they got to scout when they try to play you guys?
I wouldn't say it's hard because we work on our zone stuff just for situations like that anyway. And against Nebraska, we executed. But we prefer to be a man-to-man team. I think as everybody on the team, we prefer to play guard our man, you know, be in our gaps and play man. But if we have to throw a wrinkle, now teams have to scout and be ready, prepared just for us to go zone now because we executed so well against Nebraska.
When you guys were playing small against Purdue, Coach Holtmann said that it was maybe less about matchups and more about just how well the ball was moving offensively when you were playing that lineup. And then when you had Caleb back in the game second half against Nebraska, the ball seemed to be moving a little better too, and obviously you were good on that end of the floor. I'm just wondering if there's that ball movement, player movement stuff, is that more difficult when you have a traditional five-man in there like Caleb, and how do you make sure that you're getting the kind of movement you want offensively when you're playing Caleb on the floor as opposed to playing a smaller five?
I think even with the smaller lineup, it works with Caleb too, because with that offense that we've been running, Caleb can also shoot, so he can play inside out when he wants to with that offense. And even when we're moving the ball like that, at any given moment when we see him sealing, we have to get him the ball too, like we did a few times in Nebraska. But with that lineup, yes, we are moving the ball a lot more. We're getting it side to side quicker, and not always attacking on the first side. You know, trying to wait to the second or third side, and then getting what's open.
Sort of as a follow-up to that, when you watch basketball teams, good basketball teams, they have an identity. And watching you guys this year, it's been hard to get a read on what your identity is as a team, who you are offensively. Do you feel comfortable that you're starting to get that, or how would you describe the offensive identity of the team?
I just feel like our coach presses on taking care of the ball, which we struggle with sometimes this year, and just looking inside, try to play inside out instead of outside in. Because Caleb's is a great player. He can play inside out. He can handle. He a great passer from the post. So we try to look at him and try to give him the ball as much as possible.
How does that get affected, though, when he's been in some foul trouble and out of the game? Suddenly your identity has to change, I guess. And are you comfortable doing that? Has that been where some of the transition's been challenging?
I think as of lately, when we have to do the small ball thing, it's getting better because we're moving the ball more. We're moving the ball and we're taking advantage of the mismatches and, you know, who can attack the mismatch, or, okay, well, they got it mixed up because Caleb not in the game. Now somebody's wide open for a wide open three. So I feel like our small ball lineup is coming along and coming better when Caleb is out of the game with foul trouble.
Both of you guys are out-of-state guys, both your first year here. The rivalry with Michigan, obviously it's a football thing, but it seems to translate throughout all of the athletic programs. I'm just curious what your perspective on it is, being guys who are new to Ohio State and not from the state of Ohio, from a basketball perspective.
I got it. It's just they're a great team. Like, I don't look at it I don't really try to pay too much attention to like rivalry. It's just it's next game. They're a great team. Like they top 10 in the country right now. Like they playing great. They great from 1 to 10. So we just focus on trying to come together and get another win.
Having to go there, a place where they've been very good this year, very good the past few years, just what do you guys anticipate, having never been there yourselves, challenges? Have you talked to some of the other guys who have played there? What do you kind of make of traveling up there and then facing, like you said, a team that's that good?
Man, it's going to be a great environment. So we know that going in. Even though I haven't played there, the only time I've ever seen them, I've seen them on TV. But, I mean, I can compare it to, like, me going to play in North Carolina, me going to play at Duke. And going into an environment like that, you have to be prepared for the fans, and you got to be prepared to take the fans out of the game. So in order to do that, we have to execute our game plan and stick to what we know that we are good at and take them out of their game plan and, and just control the game as much as possible. If you can control the game as much as possible and take their fans out of the game, we'll be fine.
Luther, you're 19 games into your freshman year, and way back in the opener, you took a 3 at crunch time against Cincinnati. You did the same thing against Nebraska. Where does that come from? I mean, you see a lot of freshmen that are still tippy-toeing their way through, and you've grabbed it from the get-go.
That's just come from my teammates, like Keyshawn, CJ, the older guys, just pushing me to be the best player I could possibly be, and them trusting in me and believing in me to make big shots and to be the player I know I can be.
And Coach Holtmann's talked about your fitness level. He said it's extraordinarily high. Does that just come from playing, or do you have this regimen that is that you do on the side at all? Or because it doesn't look like you're having a kind of freshman wall.
Yeah, that just comes from playing and just coming to work every day prepared to play and prepared to be pushed. Like my whole team, even the coaches, everyone push me every day. We push each other, and we make sure we bring the best out of each other, and that helps a lot. It transitions to the game.
Keyshawn, you had talked about how it's important to take Michigan out of their game plan. What do they do well in your mind? What do you guys have to do to get the win?
Well, I know offensively, and they execute real well. And, and when they get in the ball moving and people seeing shots go in, it can be a long night for anybody that's playing against Michigan. And, you just got to take them out of their rhythm and take them out of their rhythm and don't let them be in transition a lot. And that means we can't turn the ball over. And that means on the defensive end, we pressuring the ball. We having our high hands. We, taking them out of their rhythm and making sure they're not getting a lot of wide open shots because they got a lot of people that can make a lot of plays. So we just got that. We just got to be dialed in on the defensive end.
Going back to Pat's question about the rivalry, I think you guys were both at the football game, Ohio State, Michigan. What do you remember from that? And did you realize how big the rivalry was before then?
I understood how big it was, but being at that football game, you really understand. Because you really understand that Ohio State and Michigan don't like each other, and you know how serious it is for both ends. So this game is serious for us to get this win.
Every game serious.
Thank
Okay. Obviously, I think it's no secret we're playing an elite team that has, I think, has had a special season and has a chance to have another really special season. They've got great versatility. Obviously, John's a tremendous coach. They have a outstanding blend of kind of some returning guys and guys like Poole and Matthews and Teskey and obviously Simpson. Those four guys, won a lot and played in a lot of games that have been very important. And then you add some depth and obviously a freshman in Brisdakis who can create some real matchup issues. So obviously a great challenge. Only play them once this year due to the scheduling and the way the Big Ten set up scheduling. So we've just got them once this year at their place after having played them twice last year, and look forward to a great challenge.
Chris, over the last month, it's hard to get a read on what the identity offensively, what this team is, and that's probably circumstantial, but you've been playing some small ball. What would you say the identity is, and what ideally do you want the identity to be?
I think we just want balance within our offense. I think that when you have a new team that has a lot of different roles or increased roles for guys, I think that's something that's still a little bit evolving for our group right now. I think we've had to adjust a little bit to how we've been played consistently, and I think that has forced us to change a few things within our offense. The bottom line is we've got to do a better job of taking care of the ball, number one. But I think more than anything, we want our identity. We want balance within our offense. We need our perimeter guys to be able to make plays, and we obviously want to play through the post when we have opportunities to do that. And that's not just confined to Caleb. Obviously, Caleb's a big part of that, but it's other guys as well.
Are you happy with the small ball of late? Are you spending more time on that because of Caleb and what's going on?
It's been out of necessity, obviously, with Kyle going down. We had looked at doing some things really the week prior to Kyle's injury with a bit of a bigger lineup and spent some time on that. And had to adjust. After his was it between Maryland and Purdue, I think. So we had spent a good week and a half just looking at some different things with a bit of a bigger lineup. But now we'll certainly have to play smaller. For large stretches of the game.
Just looking at Luther's performance last game against Nebraska, what was working so well in that game, and how important is it for him to have that sort of game after struggling a bit in previous games?
Well, I think he made big, timely shots and was really complete offensively and defensively. Took care of the ball, which when he struggled a little bit, he struggled taking care of the ball. But I thought he was aggressive, played with a real confidence and aggressiveness that I love to see. And made the right play a lot. I thought a lot of those plays were kind of within the offense, and I loved his aggressiveness.
And moving forward, what is Michigan's defense? Why is it one of the best in the country? What has stood out to you looking at Michigan's defense?
Great individual defenders. They've got a great system, but any elite defensive team, you're going to look and you're going to find great individual, versatile defenders. And look at them. I mean, Simpson's as good of an on-ball defender as I can remember seeing in college basketball, both in his ability to be disruptive and his physicality. Teskey's an elite ball screen defender, and then those guys they've got really good length. Matthews is a very good defender, and Poole and those other guys give him length and versatility.
Brisdakis and Muhammad have been great freshman years. And the thing that is remarkable in my eyes with them is they get beaten, they make a bad play, and they want the ball back.
Yeah.
To come back and beat you again. And could you just talk about that spirit they have at like 18, 19 years old, the fact that they could be factors and they want the ball in tough situations?
Yeah, I think they're both tough, competitive kids. When I don't know, obviously haven't coached Brzdakis, but perception would be as with Luther, he's a tough-minded, very competitive kid, and I think that is a byproduct of their success in a lot of ways. They're very talented. Their success is a byproduct of that mentality in a lot of ways, because you go through a lot of ups and downs as freshmen, but they've been able to really stay with it.
Obviously, the basketball rivalry with Michigan is a little bit different than football. Some years you play them twice, as you mentioned. I'm curious your experience with that, obviously just being a fan of sports and then being at the game this past year, maybe what that taught you and maybe how it changes your appreciation of what the basketball game can mean to people on both sides.
Yeah, I think it is. I think it's obviously a different level in football, and I can remember being years ago when was it the 30 for 30 that came out about? But I can remember just watching that, and it was really, really cool to watch. And then I think you just certainly when you take in a football game, what you realize is how important it is to so many people who love Ohio State. And I think that's probably the most obvious thing is you see how important it is, and in every sport here, but certainly I've been asked a number of times, basketball rivalries here, and I think it's to some degree there's certainly some consistent ones like Michigan. But I also think it's evolved a little bit over the years when it comes to basketball rivalries. But certainly this kind of rivalry among schools is something I've gotten a much better overall appreciation for. It's as passionate as there is in sport.
And obviously Michigan's had runs of success in the past, but what Coach Beilein's built there, when you look at how you can build a program, is that almost as perfect as you can do it from a school that maybe isn't always considered a blue blood necessarily?
Yeah, obviously they've had success, having won. I don't know when was their last national championship. 89. That's right, 89. So. That's not recent, but it's also not ancient history either. And they've been to so there is a level of tradition there. I think his level of consistency it's tremendous. I mean, and he's done it the right way, and recruited to his system. And he had some, I think, frustrating years there early in his tenure. And followed that just from being in the Midwest and knew some people on his staff. But what you see with him and a couple other programs in the Big Ten now is just a level of consistency. But he's taken it to a whole nother level. He's as good of a coach as there is in college basketball. There's no question.
Teske shot the three pretty well this year, but he's not quite what Wagner was. Just how does losing Wagner and putting maybe a little bit more of a traditional five like Teske in the game change their offense? Yeah,
a better defender in Teske, better rim protector, more physical. And if you look at his numbers right now from the three-point line, they're as good as, not the volume as Wagner, but they're as good as he is. So I don't know how much really they have lost. You could play through Wagner a little bit. He could drive it a little bit more, but I don't know. I think that's why they've had kind of the season that they've had, because you haven't lost a whole lot. Whether or not his game translates as much as Mo's to the NBA, I don't know, but he's one heck of a college player and has had a great year for him.
And as you've talked about guys having to step up a little bit in the absence of Kyle, what has Musa given you the last 2 games, particularly on the. I know he's hit some shots, but he seems very active for you defensively.
Yeah, that's it. I think he's done. I think Musa. I'm hoping that he can continue to grow and into what we need him to be for us, because I think he's been very important for us since he's gotten more consistent minutes, and hopefully he can. He's a versatile defender and athlete, and we were very much in need of that. A guy who can rebound it. I mentioned before, our length across the board is not what it needs to be moving forward, and he provides some of that, an answer to some of that, I've been really pleased with that, and his for us it's always been, hey, make good decisions, take care of the ball, and with the exception of a time or two, he's done a good job of that. Been really pleased with him. We're going to need a lot more of that out of him.
Chris, you talked about Luther being aggressive within the context of your offense. Do guys earn the right to improvise under you, or does that throw off the whole thing? I mean, how do you balance a guy being successfully creative with needing to be system sound?
Yeah, I think, you want that. You cannot coach every pass. I don't want to coach every pass. I want to have guys that understand what our team's best shot is, that have an aggressiveness, but also an understanding and some shot discipline. But I want aggressive guys that now it's harder when you have a new group and a young team, because it's not just last year we had a new team, but you had older guys who kind of had figured that out through playing college basketball. So they kind of knew, hey, this is really wasn't a good shot for me as a freshman and sophomore, and I kind of got pulled a couple times, and now I figured that out as a junior and senior. Well, what am I doing now if I'm pulling those guys? So I think that's something we've got to get better at, and it's been a challenge at times, but it's not unlike what I didn't expect. But to answer your question, yeah, I really want our guys. That's the way I've always coached. Is I think people have watched our teams and said, hey, your guys have freedom to make plays, and maybe are a little too aggressive at times, and that's when we've got to do film study and manage it.
Just since his swelling might have gone down and all that might be involved in that, but do you have any better grasp on the timeline for Kyle's return yet, or no?
No, I don't. I still think it's, we're a few weeks out from my understanding. He did not make the trip with us to Nebraska, so we're going to leave him home from here on out. But he was ill, so probably watching in his bed. He had the flu, but we'll see if he's earned the right to come back on a trip.
No one else caught that bug, did they? Because it went from Dwayne to Kyle. Is it gone now?
So far, so good. I've tried to ignore any text from our trainer today, so we'll see at practice.
The zone and some of the pressure against Nebraska, you said that's something you've been working on for a little while. How beneficial is that at this point of the season to give defenses or other teams something else they have to prepare for?
Well, listen, I think that, I've always coached pretty much man-to-man. I've played this in the past a few times, a little bit more out of necessity, but we've got to get better at it, I think, as teams adjust. And you can't play zone against everybody, and you cannot necessarily press everybody. So is it something we'll do as much? I'm not sure. But it does. It's a little bit of a byproduct of some issues we've had with depth, and then just seeing if we can be better and there's certain areas that we have to be better in, and can this help in that? And that's, I don't want to get too specific, but that's why.
With the pressure and picking some teams up like you did in Nebraska, when Luther's playing defensively the way he was, is that a big part of why something like that can maybe have an impact? Do you need Luther and CJ and Dwayne to be dialed in and active to where they can kind of get that rolling?
Yeah, those are two guys. Those two guys you mentioned are pretty good in that situation. Luther and CJ. Yeah, just because of CJ's activity. I think those two guys are pretty good in that situation. But again, we've got to, we have been working on it for a few weeks, but we'll have to adjust as teams adjust to us, and we'll have to. Teams are going to attack it different ways, but it is something we want to try to continue to do on occasion for sure.
Just to go back to the rivalry topic, is it harder in basketball to have rivalries? Just because obviously you only play them once this year, but usually you're playing them twice, and it's just a lot more games. Is it harder to focus in on? This is a team we need to beat on a consistent basis, just because of the amount of games.
I don't know. It's a good question. I haven't thought of it like that. I think there's certainly great rivalries in college basketball, but I think through the last 20 or 30 years here, you've kind of seen different Big Ten rivalries pop up, whether that's whoever. I've heard Wisconsin, Indiana, and obviously Michigan and Michigan State. I just think it kind of depends on where your program is at and where others are. I respect, every team in our league, but in some ways everyone seems like a rivalry. But I do think it's once a year in football, probably it has a different element to it.
Watching Caleb, I mean, they double down on him. It's an intriguing watching him, and he's got to be frustrated. You almost feel sorry for him, almost. How has he been handling that, and what do you do with that? His offense has dropped off a little bit. How do you manage that situation?
Yeah, he can't get caught up in how his offensive points per game numbers are, because he's got to play the game the way that his team needs for him to. And I think that what happened the other day was he had 11 rebounds. That was very important for us. He did a good job protecting the rim and set some good screens. We had a little bit better balance the other day. And that's what good players do. They find a way to impact the game and in other ways. I mean, I'm watching that Michigan State game or the Purdue game, Purdue-Michigan State maybe yesterday, part of it. I have it on the background, and someone says, Carson Edwards has 3 points and they're 20 minutes into the game or whatever, and Purdue's up 18. Well, that's a guy that's kind of figured out, hey, listen, teams are going to play us this way, and I've got to adjust, and my team will adjust with me, and that's kind of what older good players do.
How much coaching have you had to do with that with him? Because it's relatively new to him.
Yeah.
Has it been, I don't know, how have you walked him through it?
We've had regular conversations. We've had on the regular conversations, both about that and the idea of foul issues that have come up through video and one-on-one video and team video, and I just think. As I said before, he's got to manage his frustration. Coach has got to manage his frustration. That's what we've got to do in those situations. And listen, I mean, when we foul, we admit it's a foul, and that's happened. That we've got to adjust and do better.
You talked about playing with like a bigger lineup right before Kyle got hurt and working on that in practice and mixing up some things, throwing in a little zone, throwing in the pressure. Is this the time of year where you like to try to do some things like that, or did some of those?
No.
So that's more of a looking at the situation and trying to find ways to, spark the team or just change things up?
I mean, you're just searching, and I don't think you're just throwing stuff up against the wall and seeing what sticks. Because I don't think that's a healthy place to put your team in. I'm sure there are thousands of in a perfect world, Adam, would I want to be changing this, these things maybe this much through at this point in the season? No. I'd want to be really kind of tweaking some things and figuring out how to get better in some of those areas that we need to get better in. If you said, hey, if you had your druthers, what would you do? And that would be my preference. Not quite this, but we're adjusting both some injuries and the situations in front of us.
You get off the snide, so that's behind you. You know, the win is there. But how rough was that stretch for you? Both in the way you're coaching, it was a little new territory for you. Maybe you had to go back a few years. I guess personally, how did you handle it? What'd you do?
Probably not very well. Not very well. It's just, again, you take losing way harder than you enjoy winning, and there's some perspective required. My wife told me after one of the games that I needed to go talk to my daughter, who's 8, because she was very concerned about me. So that puts some, that's after the game. So I had to wake her up and tell her that, hey, Daddy's going to be okay. Like, we're gonna keep fighting at this thing and working at it and trying to figure out how I can do better and put our guys in better position. And some coaches, when they go through a stretch like that, they will just talk. For me, I get a little more introspective, and that probably created some concern in her mind. So. I do. Did you have one last one?
Go ahead.
Okay. Harrison, and I want to make sure Hookfin, anybody have the spelling? Does everybody have the spelling? Okay. Yeah, just like it sounds. Harrison Hookfin, thanks, Dan, is an added player to us. We felt like we just in practice needed a little more size. And Kyle Davis, our video coordinator, about a month and a half ago, I said, hey, keep your eye open for someone as you're talking to people. And he brought his name. Harrison came and practiced. He still is working through eligibility, the normal eligibility process, but he is a current member of our group as a walk-on.
What year? How big? Where's he from? Freshman?